My name is Andrew, and I'm with Textile. I learned today that I have very bad coffee moderation these days, so my plan was to do since it's lab day, I thought I would do 10 minutes of talking about what we do and then just 10 minutes of showing you things and explaining what we're doing to make it happen, do a little technology. So I hope that's okay, but because of the coffee, it might be more like 5 minutes, some cartwheels, 15 minutes, whatever. We'll see. Okay, so Textile is me. Sander is here. He's going to come join me in a minute. Two other guys, async over the video. Hi, Carson and Aaron later. And we're all over the place. We're trying to build mobile for the decentralized web. Okay, so I think a lot of people are familiar with this idea that we should reinvent the internet, right? But a lot of people in this room know what that means on the ground is a lot more of putting out fires, right? We're all just trying to invent something pretty new and put together pieces that are all in beta. And it means we spend a lot of time doing this. At Textile, we're really interested in taking the things that we're all doing there and figuring out how we make it work on mobile. We think that this is really critical to making our vision of the decentralized web successful because most people live on their mobile devices. And so we think building these high quality experiences for mobile devices that rely on the technology of the decentralized web are going to allow us to win. But this also means literally burning devices a lot of the time. And so we spend a lot of our time not even trying to put out fires, but trying to light fires and figure out where they're burning the hottest to figure out what we should be working on. It's really important, though, that we do this because, like I said, people live on their mobile devices. So building things that work on desktop and in the browsers is very important, but also figuring out what pieces of these need to be brought onto the mobile platforms so that we can build native applications and connect people to the decentralized web is super, super critical. And this sort of online experience that people are having that is so mobile specific is only projected to grow, right? So the amount of apps that people are using today is only projected to grow tomorrow. The amount of time people are spending in their native applications versus mobile browsers and your mobile web browsers is projected to actually grow. And the number in the US is something like 80% of time that people are spending on their mobile devices is in native applications, with only 20% of interactions happening in browsers. So it's a huge mismatch here to be just building things that are working for the web and not be thinking about how we bring them to mobile. And so we're trying to figure that out. And then if you're building things for mobile, a lot of times that means you're actually building consumer applications. You're building applications for an end user. But building successful applications for end users is something like 12 dimensions of luck, right? So to put that another way, Instagram wasn't the first application that came along and allowed you to share a photo from your mobile phone. There were hundreds of dead applications that came before them that they learned the failures and they learned the successes from those applications. So building consumer applications is almost like an evolutionary process where we need those deaths to happen. And so what we're thinking is we need to enable hundreds of applications to flourish so that a few of them can really succeed. So if we want hundreds of applications to flourish, we need to make it easy. Okay, so Textile, the company that we're building, is really a lab for mobile, and that's why it's exciting to be here at Lab Day. And our thought is that let's build these building blocks of mobile experiences and release those to mobile developers all over so that they can come and build these applications faster. So the types of building blocks for mobile are very similar to the building blocks that we've all been talking about all day. Everything from permissions to identity to file sharing, personalization, machine learning. All of those pieces, we need to figure out what needs to be reinvented and what needs to be packaged for applications. But the way that we work is really we're trying to be pragmatic about this. So solve first problems first, right? So we're trying to identify what are the hardest pieces right now to just getting the little pieces of the decentralized web into native applications faster. We have an application that we consider sort of like our field study. It's called Textile Photos. It allows you to take photos, back them up on IPFS, sync them between your devices, and share them with your friends and family. The sharing component is, you could imagine it's something between a subreddit and an Instagram, you can create private, what we call threads, invite other people to those threads, and then post your photos to those threads specifically. And we'll show you a little bit of that in the demo portion. Right, so decentralized photo backup, posting photos. It's mobile first, so this is really thinking about how to build native applications and then later deconstruct those pieces and make each part of the Textile Photos application replicable in future applications. Offline first is a really important thing, and we'll talk about that in the demo as well. So thinking of these peer-to-peer applications that you've seen today in demos and talks before, it's a little bit different, right? Because in a mobile application, the two nodes in peer-to-peer are rarely ever going to be online at the same time. So if you think of your pattern of application use, you might open up an application. That application may only be open for 30 seconds, and it will go into the background. And while it's in the background, it can't really do all the operations of being part of the decentralized web. So you need to be thinking of how to get around those problems. Simple tasks like inboxing are totally different for the decentralized web. So encryption is a very important thing. We're using IPFS, so thinking through how you do encryption for shared data, how you invite people to private threads, how you even store your own personal data there. And it's open source, obviously, because we want feedback from developers early. We're already talking to people here that we're encouraging to fork this and start building their own solutions, thinking of it the same way. But in this field study, we get to start testing all these other little small pieces of how to make this replicable and what we can teach to the rest of the community about, how do we store personalized data in a wallet-like structure. So just like people feel comfortable storing currencies in a wallet, they could put their personal data into an encrypted wallet, all the way to things like decentralized permissions, sharing your data, authentication. And we're really starting to just chip away at small bits of this piece by piece. And what's awesome is so much of this we don't need to reinvent. There's so many people working on these. It's thinking about how to get them to work in the mobile experience and make that, making them work replicable. And to put this, another way, Textile Photos, like I said before, with the consumer apps is a bit of luck. We don't imagine Textile Photos is the final decentralized photo sharing application. We actually just think it's the first of hundreds. And what we want to do is build the tools so that people can build those later hundreds quickly, and we can move to this sort of future vision. And so as we grow, as Textile grows, and we make that work and we start releasing that, we want to start picking off the other core pieces of the mobile experience that people need to build applications, and start building the building block and start constructing those building blocks and releasing them to developers. Okay, so like I said, everybody here is here for Lab Day, and so I think maybe it'd be more interesting to show you cool things that happen on IPFS than talk about what we're doing. So how about that? Okay, so a little game plan here. I'm going to try to talk about our wallet. I'm going to try to talk about backup and sharing and offline devices. We're going to show you some device syncing, all the good stuff. Okay? All right, so first things first, I'm going to invite Sander up because he's going to do things with me to show you some of this peer-to-peer stuff. Okay, I have the app running on my phone. I also have it on the simulator here just so you can see a version of it, which is a different user than myself. Okay, so when you log into the app, the first thing that you're going to get is you're going to get sort of your wallet, which is where photos that you take are going to be entered. So when you take a new photo, maybe I can simulate that with the browser here. You can't use a camera on the simulator, so I'm just going to download a photo and get it into my wallet. Okay, so the app is now tracking the camera roll. It's going to find that photo ideally. It's going to do a couple things. First, it's every time you download the app, you get your own private key that only exists in the mobile application. Maybe just. And so when your app discovers a new photo, the first thing it's going to do is encrypt it with that private key. No, sorry. It's going to encrypt it with a totally unique key for that photo. Then it's going to take that key and encrypt it with your private key and store it in your wallet. So it's going to have and it's going to get the hash of the final encrypted photo. So it's going to have a mapping of IPFS hashes and the keys to unlock those hashes and the fact that I own them. The next thing that you can do in Textile Photos is you can create threads. So a thread is where you share photos. You're free to make as many threads as you want, or other people can invite you to their threads. And so for the last couple of days, we've had a DWeb Summit thread going that anybody that was at the DWeb Summit could basically scan our invite and could come into this and share photos. And so if you share a photo into a thread, so if I want to share this into the DWeb Summit, I'll just give it a caption and share it. And so what happens here is the key to decrypt this photo is now encrypted with the private key of my shared thread.
You can see I've got a desktop app running here that is on that thread, and Andrew's photo just popped up there.
Yeah. So let me show you. Yeah, let me show you that too. We don't make the desktop app totally available yet, but if I fire it up here, I've paired this with the phone on my device, which is syncing to it all the time. And so we'll see a little bit of that in a second. Well, I'm not actually subscribed to DWeb anymore. I forgot about that.
So what I can do is, because my computer's on the DWeb thread, I'm just going to send Andrew's peer a direct invite to that thread. So I already know his public key. So if I fire that off, you can see it pop up there, and you can see the photos from the whole week starting to populate on his peer.
So why don't we explain the invite and how that happened real quick, if you don't mind. Here, I'll switch with you.
Yeah, so each thread is essentially a key set. So the key set encrypts all the photos in that thread. So if you find any piece of the hash chain which makes up all the updates that happen in the thread, you can reverse that, and you'll pick up all the peers in that thread. You'll pick up any peers that left, or any new photos. So essentially a thread is a shared, persistent, distributed state. And for us, the first use case of that is photos, but we'd like to do a similar thing with chat, or audio or video, any kind of data.
Okay, so then the next thing that happens is if Sander shares a new photo. So we created a little demo time thread here. Oh, let me show you the accepting process, which isn't totally ironed out yet. But on the simulator, I haven't accepted the invite yet to demo time, but I've created a link for it that I can just click on here. And so if I click on the invite link to demo time, it's going to open in the app. The link contains all that information that he just pointed out. So if all goes well, I should be able to join that. Live demo time. Come on, guy. Okay, let's not wait around for that. But the other thing that will happen here is we should be able to take photos. So you'll see in my demo time here, Sander already took a photo while I was speaking and shared it to demo time, which I had the ability to see and discover offline. So there's Sander posting photos. And so, yeah, what else should we show here? Oh, the offline messaging. Should we explain that? So what we were talking about with two peers never being online at the same time being tricky, peer-to-peer here doesn't work. So I can't say, I want to share a photo with Sander in a thread that he's also part of, because I don't know when Sander's going to be online. And so we borrowed some work from OpenBazaar to make this possible, this concept of inboxing. So maybe you want to explain that.
Right. So like you said, most of the time you're offline. So you can't say, hey, can you open your phone and open the app so I can send you a photo. Like, that's not going to work. So what we do is insert a pointer to the block, which is the update, which lives on IPFS, on the DHT. And then when that peer comes online, they periodically query the DHT, look for those pointers, and download the content. It's not an ideal mechanism, but works for now. What else?
Yeah.
Might be it.
Yeah. So that's Textile Photos. So the we tried to just blast through all the overview of how that's working. Our plan here is right now the app is sort of straddling two different use cases. One is the storage, the synchronization, and the backup of your photos. So the ability to pair your app with your desktop and have your photos automatically syncing, as well as being able to find a server on IPFS to back those up for you remotely. And then the other use case is the ability to share privately with other people. So likely as we move forward in the future, we're going to split those off into two different applications that you can choose to use. And the building block that we'll try to figure out there is how a user could be signed into both apps and have them synchronize the data that they essentially own. So data that they're entering into their wallet and data that other people are sharing to them in threads. The current application that straddles both, it's available on the App Store. If you talk with us, we can get you a referral code. It's very, very buggy and crashy currently, so if you use it, we're really hoping that you'll use it to test it out and get us crash reports and see how the interfaces are working. But our goal is to make that very, very usable by mid-September so that you can start playing with it and actually trying to move your photos around and share with other people. But yeah, I think that that's all we have for the core bit, and happy to take questions now. Yeah. So we have investors. We're VC backed, and we're kind of working on the long-term vision of if we can build all these building blocks and get a lot of different developers working on this problem with us, that we can continue moving forward up the stack and look at other problems that you face in mobile when you want to be decentralized. So how do you do things like app discovery and distribution? Or how do you do things like user onboarding? How do you do things like app testing? And we can start solving some of those other bigger problems. But really, we need people to be building more applications first. So let's get all the building blocks in place. Anybody else? Do we run IPFS locally or remotely? Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we run IPFS on all the devices. So when you download the app, IPFS runs directly on the mobile phone. And so that's where we have to figure out that peer-to-peer bit differently because the nodes aren't going to be able to connect all the time. And same with the desktop. When you run the desktop, it runs locally.
And you can also run the node, which we just call a textile node. It has Go IPFS in it with our application logic wrapped around it. And we use Go Mobile to build frameworks for iOS and Android, and Electron for the desktop app. But so you can run that node in what we call cafe mode, which essentially offers pinning services with web tokens. And it'll offer like referral codes and a user API. Anyone can run the node in cafe mode and do your pinning there and whatever. If you use our app, currently you'll just be using our cafe nodes. But you could either compile it from open source and point it at your own nodes, or we'd like to eventually be able for you to be able to select a different cafe node to pin your data to. And then you still participate in the same DHT, because we're separate from IPFS, but it's all the same mechanisms, so yeah.
Okay, final demo, just so you guys see. I have 10 seconds left. I'm going to make a thread, just so you see how cool this is over IPFS. I'm going to create a thread, and I'll call it Y. There's a T in there, sorry. Okay, you'll see that it already showed up on my desktop. Now, I'm going to share a photo that I took of the previous speaker into YYYYYYYTYY. And I'm going to say hi. Okay? Voila. All over IPFS. Cool. All right. That's it. Thank you.